Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the meeting of the Development Control and Regulatory Board this day, 2023. This is a public meeting and is being broadcast via YouTube. I remind members to turn off your speaking, turn them off. They have finished speaking. I suppose that goes for officers. For today's meeting, Mr. Tom Barclay is for Mr. Garland has decided not to sit. Any perception biased Bracknell Farm application. However, speaking as a local member, as per Members Planning Code of Conduct Practice. Thank you. And we move on to the agenda proper then, and the first item is minutes. Previous meeting. Would you like to, Mr. Harrison, to second? Okay. Yep. Anybody comment? Vote. Favour of the minute? Not unanimous then, Ewan. Thank you. Item 2, I have not received any questions from Item 3, I have not received any questions from Item 4, there are no urgent items. Item 5, the declarations of interest. Respect of items on the agenda. Noted that all members, so members, parish, town, district, liaison committee have a personal interest in those applications which relate to areas covered by those authorities. Are there any further declarations at this time? We like to. Item 6 then, I have not received any petition standing order 35. Item 7 is the application that we're here to discuss today. Winstanley Aggregates Limited to Bracknell Farm, Leicester Road, Hurleston. The application will be considered by the board. Application at the time of the meeting, the previous meeting, however, due to an oversight, apparent oversight, no motion was formally proposed. Board therefore considering whole application again at today's meeting to ensure all those. You should have received a supplementary report which was circulated after the main agenda went out. The report is being presented by Katie Ferguson. So, Katie, I'll hand over to you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is submitted by Winstanley Aggregates Limited for the retrospective change of use of agricultural land to Soil and Aggregates Waste Transfer Centre, sui generis, and includes associated works and engineering options at Bracknell Farm, Leicester Road, Thurleston. Bracknell Farm lies within the open countryside and is located approximately 600 metres from the edge of Earl Shilton. The site is bound on all sides by agricultural fields. Access to Bracknell Farm is via a shared access for the farm and additional uses off a roundabout junction connecting Leicester Road and the A47. The nearest residential property outside of the wider farm site lies approximately 380 metres to the north of the site on Clickers Way. The application area for the retrospective change of use of agricultural land to Soil and Aggregates Waste Transfer Centre, sui generis, and included associated works and engineering options is shown on the slide outlined in red. The proposed development seeks to import 75,000 tonnes per annum of non-hazardous soil and aggregate waste, with the inclusion of a screener, crusher, excavator to move, sort and prepare material on site. It is proposed that the stock and product piles would be kept to a maximum height of 5 metres. As part of the proposal, weighbridges and a site office would be included, along with works to extend the existing site access in width by approximately 7.3 metres, with the inclusion of an electric gate, 5 car parking spaces and 1 cycle space. As part of the application, a transport statement was submitted proposing a net 24 two-way movements across a typical day. The application also proposes the creation of a minimum of 3 jobs. The noise impact assessment submitted with the application concluded that there would be a low impact at the on-site dwelling at all times of the day, and all off-site dwellings are at a significant distance from the site and are not expected to be subject to any noticeable noise impact from operations. Expression of interest letters were received as part of the application from 3 companies in utilising Bracknell Farm as a waste transfer station. On the 24th of April of this year, additional information was submitted by the agent but produced by Golden Site, a company trading in aggregates, in relation to the need and location of Bracknell Farm as a waste transfer station, and this was assessed in the supplementary report. To summarise, the document stated the following: the need for recycled gravels and sand, quarries near Bracknell Farm are hard stone quarries producing different products to what the farm would supply. There are 3 local recycling companies in the area. However, the main business of these is supplying skips and the traceability of materials. In addition to the document, a spreadsheet was submitted that listed quarry material types, supplying HS2, distance from the farm in central Leicester, areas and distances from the farm, distances from the current supplier and housing sites, civil sites, highways jobs and material types. As part of the application, it is proposed that a new landscaping bund would be implemented, measuring approximately 3 metres in height and extending around the north, east and south of the soil and processing store area. The proposed bund would include a hedgerow, scrub and woodland mix. In addition, a landscaping bund is proposed along the access road to the west of the weighbridge and site office area. A biodiversity impact assessment was also submitted, concluding the proposal would result in a biodiversity net gain. For reference, the landscaping bund has partially been implemented, extending around the north, east and south of the site. Therefore, this aspect of the application would be seeking retrospective planning permission. The planting on the bund has not been implemented. The Parish Council objected to the application for the following reasons. Planning policy DM4 countryside is deemed to not have been taken into consideration. There is no monitoring regime in place or proposed despite the Environment Agency's licence to operate. HGV traffic impact during peak hours on the A47 Clickers Way roundabout has not been measured by county highways, and pre-application operational consents and conditions have not been stated to protect the public good. In addition, 5 representations have been received, 1 objecting, 2 in support and 2 simply stating no objections to the application. The objecting comment related to the uncertainty of the tipping material, the unauthorised development, working 7 days a week, noise, flooding, the time taken for landscaping to become an effective screen, and the ruining of good farmland. The comments of support related to the site avoiding any major disruption to the surroundings, bringing jobs to the area, and the demand for hardcore. The application site lies within the open countryside as defined by the Blaby District Local Plan. As the site sits outside of the settlement boundary for Earl Shilton, Policy W4 non-strategic waste facilities and W5 locating waste facilities are the appropriate starting points for assessing the application. Bracknell Farm as an application site does not fall within the urban areas of the broad locations, in or close to the main urban areas of Melton Mowbray and Market Harborough, or within major growth areas, previously referred to as Sustainable Urban Extensions or SUEs. As an application site, it is not on land within an existing unauthorised waste management use, on existing or planned industrial or employment land, on previously developed, contaminated and or derelict land, or on an existing mineral working site. The application therefore does not accord with Policy W4 Parts 1 to 3 and Policy W5 Parts 1 to 4 of the Leicestershire County Council Minerals and Waste Local Plan. For visual reference, the left-hand diagram on this slide shows the SUE for Earl Shilton, as per the Earl Shilton and Barwell Action Plan. The right-hand diagram shows Bracknell Farm in relation to Earl Shilton's SUE. The application site at its closest is approximately 600 metres to Earl Shilton's SUE. Therefore, the application does not accord with Policy W4 Part 3, as it does not sit within a major growth area. The latter part of Policy 4 relates to new waste facilities. The application proposes a retrospective change of use of agricultural land to a soil and aggregates waste transfer centre, sui generis, and includes associated works and engineering options, and therefore does not accord with Policy W4 Parts A to C. As shown on the slide, Policy W4 Part D and the second part of Policy W5 requires information to be submitted providing a clear link between the proposed location and the waste managed, which would result in transport, operational and environmental benefits, and that the applications must demonstrate the overriding need for the development, which cannot be met within the urban areas. The application does not provide sufficient and substantial evidence supporting Bracknell Farm as a sustainable location for a waste transfer facility. The information submitted provides limited support for the need for the development, as well as little to no evidence for a clear link between the site and the waste managed. In turn, this restricts the amount of weight given to the comments relating to the proposed benefits. Despite expression of interest letters being included within the submission, what must be noted is that these letters are expression of interest only. No formal contracts have been agreed and submitted as part of the application, so there is no guarantee that these companies would utilise the application site. These letters do not overcome the policy conflict. With regards to the recently submitted additional information in the form of a document and a spreadsheet, it provided details of a potential customer for Bracknell Farm. The information appears to relate mainly to the exportation of sand, with the original submission making little or no reference to sand specifically as a byproduct. The document makes no reference to the spreadsheet, and therefore it is not clear what this information is evidencing, and no additional information was provided in relation to the importation of materials or tonnage amounts. Although a potential customer, a single customer for which the primary interest appears to be sand, does not demonstrate an overriding need for the development sufficient to overcome the policy concerns. Overall, the information submitted in relation to the application lacks clarification and detailed information to prove Bracknell Farm has proven links as a proposed waste transfer centre to the waste managed through imports and exports, nor does the information justify an overriding need for the development that cannot be met within policy compliant locations for waste facilities. It should be noted that the proposal is retrospective and therefore should be able to provide ticketing information for the current waste that is being imported and exported, along with an assessment of authorised locations where this waste would have gone to or from instead of Bracknell Farm. This would indicate whether there was a sufficient link between transfer operations at Bracknell Farm and the waste managed, a matter that has been highlighted by the Waste Planning Authority throughout the pre-application and submission stage. None of this information has been provided. Therefore, the development as proposed results in an unacceptable form of development in the open countryside, detrimental to the character of the locality, and an unsustainable form of development, contrary to Policy DM1 and DM2 of the Leicestershire County Council Minerals and Waste Local Plan. The following seven slides show photographs of the retrospective waste transfer station. This slide shows photo comparisons taken towards the farm buildings at Bracknell Farm from May 2022 to August 2022. This slide shows the most recent photo taken in March 2023 towards the farm buildings at Bracknell Farm. This slide shows photo taken from Earl Shilton Road towards Bracknell Farm, July 2022 and April 23. The next two slides show photos taken from the proposed part retrospective screening bund looking southwestwards towards Earl Shilton in August 2022 and in March 2023. As mentioned, Bracknell Farm as an application site does not fall within the urban areas of the broad locations in or close to the main urban areas of Melton Mowbray and Market Harborough, or within major growth areas, as it is clear from the slide that the application sits outside of the defined SUE for Earl Shilton. The information submitted as part of the application does not provide a clear link between Bracknell Farm as the proposed location and the waste managed. There was little to no evidence as to where waste was being imported from and exported to, despite the application being retrospective. As part of the application, there's not been substantial information which relates to the need for Bracknell Farm as a waste transfer station within the wider need for Leicestershire. There is currently sufficient existing operational recycling capacity to meet the needs within the plan period for Leicestershire, and the application does not provide sufficient evidence to highlight an overriding need for a waste transfer station at Bracknell Farm, or that this need cannot be met within the policy compliant locations for waste facilities. The development as proposed therefore results in an unacceptable form of development in the open countryside, detrimental to the character of the locality, and an unsustainable form of development, contrary to policies DM1, DM2, W4 and W5 of the Leicestershire Minerals and Waste Local Plan, policy CS1 and CS18 of the Blaby District Council Local Plan, and policy DM2 of the Blaby District Local Plan Development Plan document, and therefore is recommended for refusal. In addition, the development that is occurring has now persisted for over 18 months. Therefore, in addition to a refusal of planning permission for this development, it is further recommended that the council undertakes enforcement action to cease the use, remove all of the waste materials, machinery and other chateaux placed on the land associated with the waste transfer centre, and the reinstatement to its previous condition. That is all from me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Katie. That's well done as usual. This afternoon we have 4 speakers to address us this afternoon. The first one is Mrs. Maggie Wright. If Maggie's here, are you? If you'd like to sit in one of those 6 chairs, Maggie, and you have 5 minutes, and then if you just remain in the chair just in case any members want to ask any questions on what you've said today.
Thank you.
Off when you're ready. You will time you.
I'll set my timing as well. Thank you. So I am familiar with the site as it falls within my district ward and was until a recent boundary commission change within my county division. Put simply, this scheme has substantial merit but only technically breaches policy because it's on the wrong side of the road, and therefore the policy deems it to be an unacceptable location. However, with suitable planning permission, the site would be able to agree contracts with house builders and developers and minimise travel for soil and aggregate across the highway network, good for carbon reduction. It is within a major growth area and has links to strategic network demand on the doorstep. Please debate what the significance of the policy breach is and the practical implications if located closer to residential properties where ironically it would be permitted. Why would you want to move such a site closer to the urban areas of Hinckley and Burbage? Here mitigation measures would have to be put into place to restrict noise and dust due to the close proximity of residential properties. The local highway network would not be suitable. Conversely, the farm stands alone and does not require major mitigation proposals. It really is an ideal location to provide minimum disruption. Other advantages and merits are the site is only 20 hectares and stands on the back of the existing farm building's footprint. Highways access is excellent directly onto the A47 via a roundabout. The closest residential properties are 300 to 500 metres away. It is a contained site with landscaping and bunding, a net gain in biodiversity. It is a non-hazardous product that is recycled and limited to 75 tonnes per annum with an EA permit controlled by Weybridges. There are no parking issues and could employ 3 local people. Traffic movements are limited to 24 two-way movements a day. There are limited objections. However, it is important to note none from major consultees. Blaby District Council has no issue regarding sustainability and are the local planning authority. The site is open countryside, but there are plans for nearby Earl Shilton and Barwell Sues, which this shares certain synergies with, and with a large battery storage farm on Earl Shilton Lane. The Bracknell Farm site will also be surrounded by acres of solo farms at the nearby Tooley Park and Hill Farm, Thurliston. Plans have already been submitted and are being processed, as well as the one already permitted in Thurliston, where 130 acres solar farm scheme has commenced. I ask that the committee consider approving this application, or in the very least give opportunity to prove its sustainability. Planning permission would regulate and control the activities and save enforcement. It is difficult for the operator to attract contracts and provide the requested evidence if not in actual production. The expressions of interest provided indicate demand. This is an opportunity for a local farmer to diversify and be proactive in capturing future market opportunities, as well as aiding the council's commitment to recycling of waste materials arising from construction. I accept planning decisions are in the now, but in this case feel it would be non-strategic to dismiss and ignore what is known and planned for in this area. I would like to close with a question for you to consider. What is the real world harm to allowing this development? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Maggie. Any questions for Maggie on what she said this afternoon from anyone? No, it looks like you're free to go then, Maggie. No, I don't. Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is Mr. Richard Allen. If you'd like to sit on one of those 6 chairs, Mr. Allen, you have 5 minutes to speak. Ewan will time you. And if you would like to remain in the chair when you've done speaking, just in case any members got any questions they want to ask you. Okay? You use your microphone, won't you?
Indeed, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak on this item today, Chair. I'd just like to start by stating that I'm actually supportive of the principle of what the applicant is trying to do. The development at Bracknell Farm is closest to and has the most impact upon the residents of my division in Earl Shilton. My concerns specifically regard the location, with the workings having a significant visual impact on its surroundings, and also taking note of the complaints that I've received about noise from the site, which have been passed on to officers. The first that anyone knew about works on this site was when, without warning or notice, lorry loads of hardcore and heavy machinery, including a rock crusher, started appearing on site. The applicants and their agent have stated that they were unaware that they needed planning permission to import tens of thousands of tons of material onto what started off as a farmer's field. Ignorance is no defence in the eyes of the law. It is a basic planning principle that any application be decided upon its own merits, and not in relation to any other potential developments that may or may not come forward at some point in the future. If an authority starts ignoring or making exceptions to its own policies, chaos ensues, as has been demonstrated by my own district council. The facts are that here and now, this application is not compliant with the currently adopted policies of this council, as has been detailed in the officer's report. I would therefore ask members to support the officer's recommendations A and B. Finally, Chair, I'd just like to say that I hope the applicants find a site for their operations that does conform to policy, and I would wish them every success in their ventures should they do that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any questions for Mr. Allen on what he said? No, that's it. So you're done.
Thank you. And I didn't even use 5 minutes, Chair.
Okay, the next speaker then is Ben Rayner, who from Holland Lloyds.
Giving you separate times.
No. You've got 3. Whoever Ben Rayner has got 3 minutes, and whoever Mark Harrison is has got 2 minutes. So you're Ben Rayner, are you then? Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes, Mr. Rayner. Ewan will time you. And when you finish speaking, if you just remain in your chair, just in case there are a question to be asked. Okay? Start when you're ready then. Thank you.
Councillors, Chair, officers, thank you very much for your time today. Having presented at the last meeting, I only seek to recap the main points and introduce Mark from Goldenside, who will set out the local need for this facility. As you're aware, the applicant benefits from Environment Agency Standard Rules Permit, which will limit the amount of development and controls the operational use of the site. Bracknell Farm has been the applicant's home for 42 years, operating a small dairy farm which is trying to diversify with sustainability and biodiversity at its core. As a farm, there are no limitations on working hours, heights, or locations of piles of muck, silage, or straw. We're restricting these piles to 5 metres. Therefore, it's considered a soil and aggregate use is a logical location at the farm. There's no objection from the following consultees: Thurlaston Parish Council, Blaby District Council, the Environmental Health Team, the Environment Agency, the Highways Authority, Ecology, or Landscape. The farm will lose 20% of its grazing land due to the largest battery storage facility in the UK, which the applicant currently rents the fields of. The storage facility will have a 2-metre bund erected, and this will also reduce the visibility of the farm. The local area around the site is set to undergo transformational change, with solar farms, battery storage, as mentioned, residential and commercial urban extensions planned just on the other side of the road, and there'll be further growth in advanced local plans. While the officer recommends refusal, as a committee you can overturn this recommendation. The policy would have allowed this site had a theoretical red line for Earl Shorten been drawn 600 metres further afield. There is a clear and definite requirement for a new soil and aggregate supplier with a demand that exceeds the supply and ageing machinery in the local quarries. Most gravels processed are absorbed by the companies who own those quarries. Mark's company currently sources gravels and soils from Leicestershire for the Leicestershire market from Birmingham and Staffordshire. As a committee, you have an opportunity to provide a sustainable supplier for the Leicestershire market. The proposal delivers a sustainable use for a farm undergoing diversification. The site is located within a highly sustainable location, close to existing highway infrastructure and areas of residential and employment growth in this and future local plan periods. As evidenced in the consultee responses, there are no overriding reasons that this scheme should be refused. Mark will elaborate on the operational requirement in the local area, and I welcome questions on that to him. Following this, we welcome any questions you may have regarding the proposal. And again, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you. Questions for the gentleman? Oh, looks like you're free to go then, Ben. Thank you. Next person to speak then is Mark Harrison, Golden Sites. Mark, last but not least, you've got 2 minutes. Ewan will time you, and if you just remain in your chair when you finish speaking, in case of any questions for you on what you said today. But start when you're ready, Mark.
Okay, so it's not very long, but obviously I would touch on what Maggie's pointed out about. She's only gone through 5 jobs in the local area that have a need for an aggregate, and it's not just sands that we're looking at there, it's everything. What you probably don't understand is that the need for the aggregate and everything that is getting passed as development, there's not sustainable amount of any aggregate in the area, and what is there now is either it's coming to an end within the next 2 years, and to then restart another place now will take 2 years plus, or it's just not happening. Where we get from the major quarries is not what we're looking at doing. So we're looking at recycled products, which has got the green element on it. With the farm, it's a 0 to landfill. So at the moment, if we have anything coming out of that area, it will go over to either a tip that is not doing any recycling whatsoever, and it is a tip, so you're not getting anything back out of that product to come back into the market, or it will go further afield, gets recycled there, and then goes into the West Midlands area. So for what we're taking out of the area, we don't see any benefit coming back in. But where we run to NHBC, local council work, national highways, we all have to be seen now to be going down the green footprint. And by taking stuff still from further afield, we don't get that. And we can't show that we're doing that. If you've got something within your local area that is less miles away from where you're getting it from, you can afford to do a recycled product that is cheaper and it's more cost effective. I say your price of your housing's come down. You've got more sustainability on everything that you're doing. And this is what we're really looking at. And that's why really, for us, where that's going in is perfect. It's great area, location's perfect, size of it is brilliant. And really, I don't understand where everybody's sort of against it other than it being outside that little area. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Mr. Phillimore, you've
Thank you, Chair. I'll just drill down a little bit. So some of the application detail and the representation relates to the environmental credentials of having this recycling centre close to, but you've just mentioned you'll be taking it to and from the West Midlands as well. So how
No, this is what we're currently doing. So at the moment in Leicester, there's no centre like this. So what we're trying to operate is a zero to landfill. So at the moment, even landfills, we go to Brooksby, which it's a sand and gravel quarry, but it only takes in soils. Whether that's recyclable or not, they don't care. They're just filling a hole in. It's the same as one on Ashby Road, Hinckley. You can go and tip there. You can go and tip it in Nuneaton. But they're going out the area. The one at Ashby Road in Hinckley, it's just a tip. So they're not recycling any products. You can take materials in there, hardcores, sands, gravels, hoggings. You're not getting anything back out of it because it's going into the hole. But basically, they're building the holes up to build up. So you're not having any recycling there. Whereas Leicester itself, if you took Birmingham, say, for instance, where we get a lot of our stuff from that will come to Leicester, basically, it's a hub. So you'll take in a material under a protocol that can basically be pretty much 95% recycled, resold out as a product. But it's not hazardous waste, it's not contaminated, it's all inert waste that you're using. You're just providing a material and turning it into something that can actually be used rather than just being used for fill.
Chair, can I come back?
Okay.
So I'm looking at a wider environmental consideration, and I'm still going to focus on your comment about to and from the West Midlands. Presumably that will be in lorries of some kind or another, which have an environmental impact. So I'm curious or questioning the degree of environmental sustainability that you're suggesting.
Yeah.
When you're putting trucks on the road to and from the West Midlands.
No, other way around. So currently at the moment, that's where our stuff comes from. We're bringing stuff from Coventry, we're bringing stuff from Coleshill, and that is coming into this area. Once this is open, granted, yeah, there'll still be an element of it because there's only 75,000 tonne that it can do. But let's say we sell 100,000 tonne a year. So instead of getting 100,000 tonne from the West Midlands and bringing it into Leicestershire area, if we're only taking 25,000 tonne out of the West Midlands area and bringing it into Leicestershire area, the environmental impact there for us is obviously a lot better.
Can I still keep questioning, please, Chair?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, crystal ball, looking forward. So I can't read or see that you have contracts in place within Leicestershire.
Right.
Okay, Leicester and Leicestershire. So, with your crystal ball, what percentage of vehicle movements, excuse me, the earthquake we've just had, but vehicle movements will be coming from within Leicester and Leicestershire that could not use the existing waste transfer and centres that we already have. So if you've got a crystal ball that says, you know, so you're saying 25% is going to come from potentially from the West Midlands still. Yeah. So that's 75%. Where would that actually come from without contracts actually already in place?
Let's say, for instance, so we've just done a job at Stoke Golding. We've just put in best part of about 5,000 tonne of a 6F2 material. There is nowhere in Leicester. You can't buy that. You can't buy that amount of tonnage. Everyone that's in Leicester derives themselves on a skip. So basically, you can have a skip on your driveway, put a few slabs in it. That's what they get out. The rest of it is where they make the money. They send it abroad and they get paid for it. It goes off as fuel. So currently, at the moment, we've just done 5,000 tonne of a 6F2 material from Rugby. So that's one job. I mean, on my list there, we've probably got, there's 10 years worth of work on there. And in reality, your 75,000 tonne is only a small snippet of what we're going to do on that. But all of that 75,000 tonne will go into the local area. Nothing will go out. Nothing should really go out within a 10-mile radius of where it is.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. No more questions for you then, Mark. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Right, now open to members then. The recommendation is that we refuse planning permission and issue an enforcement notice. So, members, Mr. Phillimore. Oh, you're hobbying the gentleman. Mr.
Thank you.
Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, even considering me second. Thank you. I am concerned because I've heard the very spirited comments on all of this, and they are very good. And obviously, I'd like to congratulate the officers in the report. Was very succinct and involved all of the issues that we need to talk about. But, you know, if we look at what our policy is, it doesn't say flexibility. And the retrospective element of this is the gentleman's just said 75,000 and he's talking of 100,000. You know, so rules are rules and how you operate is really important. And I think if someone starts a business in a way and incurred considerable costs, without, if they'd have not had the retrospective approach of we're doing it and off we go, of talking and coming and sitting down with the planning officers and the people at county, they would have probably been able to guide or be more helpful. But we're confronted now with a situation where we know it's not within the local plan. We know it is retrospective as well. And we know also the second element of this is obviously enforcement. So it is very, very serious, this situation. I'm concerned that the company involved has spent a lot of capital and time and energy in setting this up, and they may be able to produce a market. But nobody said to me today, here's a list of 5, 10 or 20 people who've now said they'd use us if we were available. Now, it's hard to sign a contract when you haven't got planning permission. They've realised that now, but they haven't even got people who'd say, yes, we'd consider using you if you were legally open, etc., etc. So I really feel that, and I'll move because it's very early, but other people want to speak, but I would move the officer's recommendation based on Appendix A. And the reason for refusal is very comprehensive. And I think, you know, it isn't about whether we like this colour or that colour, whether this fella's nice or that person or whatever. It's about the rules and law in planning and the policies and what we're supposed to look at and make consideration on. So it's not about who spoke the best or whatever or was most convincing. It's what's within the law and our policies. And I think there is a breach of a policy, and it's obviously retrospective. So they took the ball by the horns and got on with it and now face the dilemma they're in. So I would like to move, Mr. Chairman. I understand others will want to speak, but I will move the officer's recommendation, but also the enforcement side, because that's going to be important. I want to be clear on this, that it is the officer's recommendation with the enforcement part of it, because that's the whole package and that's where we are today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Phillimore then.
Thank you, Chair. Could I come to you, please, Katie? Particularly 1991. Yeah, and could you just expand on that a little bit for me? Because there's the suggestion from the applicant that there's no other sites that do this within our waste management strategy and location, and you're clearly suggesting the opposite. So could you just highlight, because you know there's this question about 91%, you seem confident that that can be handled locally within our existing policies and approved waste transfer stations. So could you expand on that, please, Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned in paragraph 90 and 91, the sites that came forward in part of the initial application, there were certain ones listed which didn't cover the array that we have under our local plan that are obviously allocated for kind of the recycling facility. With the 91%, the information submitted from as part of the application related to a mixed waste use. So there was a different amount from mixed waste and then other types of material. So the large percentage of that would be, well, under our policies could be and is covered as the capacity that we have elsewhere. There is no evidence as part of the application to say, which is, as it's retrospective, what we've asked for is the ticketing information to say actually it's coming from this location now, and a reason why it couldn't then go to one of the sites that are currently in the plan, which is what, like I said, we've in the presentation we've asked for throughout the process from pre-app through to submission. If that's the key part here, is there's not information from, we're currently going to A, which is an authorised site, we would go to Bracknell Farm instead, and this is less miles, or that's more sustainable. So I don't know the full contracts of where some of these recycling sites go to and from, but I monitor one regularly, which takes in lorry loads and is similar with the bays and the aggregates, which could then obviously supply and import and export from there.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Chair.
Are you done?
If I may, Chair, I think I would say where I am with this. And farm diversification is very topical, very high on a lot of agendas. Where I'm struggling with is the officer's report indicates information light, and that makes it very difficult for an officer to actually clearly define, I guess, whether it's fitting and necessary. Historically, we are robust on our waste management strategies and our landfill sites and the programs around that. And although I understand, and there's lots of talk around policies W5, W4, though I understand the comment of, it's only 600 metres, I think, away from the SUE. As with all planning matters and all developments and all geography, the boundary has to be somewhere. And it's not, as Ms Harrison suggested, it's not a variable feast. It is either it's this or it is that. So as much as I understand the ambition of a farm diversifying its operations, I do tend to find in the officer's favour on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Keith.
Thank you, Chair. I'd first like to thank the officers for their report. Well done, thank you. And with regards to the application, I do think, and my colleagues just mentioned it, I do think farmers have to diversify. They're struggling to make a living with dairy farming. And this application is retrospective, but there's a couple of things, and I think you mentioned information light, and I'm concerned that the officers have had to approach the applicant for information, and they got one ticket, one waste ticket, and I find that incredible, really. And then the other tickets were then provided, but if the applicant is going to be like this with the information to help get the planning through, what's the applicant going to be like when it comes to putting the mitigation measures in place and all the rest of it? I'm really concerned that it's not a strong application, and I just can't find anything in here to go against the officer's recommendations. I just can't find anything, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Keith. Michael.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a few brief comments. The fact that the agent or the applicant didn't realise they needed planning permission, I find that slightly implausible, to be honest. In the real world, people know big operations like this need permission. They're in a bit of a cleft stick. No reputable company is going to sign a contract with them while they haven't got planning permission. And although there's been many expressions of interest, they don't really count, sadly, for the applicant. So that's a concern. Lack of information has already been mentioned. I've been on this committee quite a while now, and we've had many waste applications come before us. And the one thing applicants, this committee and the residents outside expect is consistency. And if we have policies and guidelines, we need to stick to them. If there is some flexibility within them, fine, but there's little point in having them if we don't adhere to them. And I think the people out there would expect us to do that. So I shall be voting for the officer's recommendation.
Yeah, second.
Second. Yeah.
I'll second, Chair.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Grimley.
I do have a lot of sympathy with the applicants, and we're not debating whether or not they should have put the respective planning permission in. We're debating whether or not this should be allowable. I just still think with everybody else at the moment, there's just not quite the evidence there to push it forward to have the flexibility that I'd like to give. I do have a lot of sympathy for farmers and everyone else. I just would think the information could have been made available on the ticketing, which I think is a problem on that. Otherwise, I'd be probably going the other way. But I'll support the officer's recommendation on this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Grimley. Thank you. Anyone else? No. Mr. Bannister.
Thank you, Chairman.
Just got under the wire.
Yes, and can I join the other members of this board that have expressed sympathies with the applicant and what they're trying to do. And I listened carefully to all of the speakers, and in particular to the point Maggie Wright made in relation to the sort of weird situation that if this site is away from residents, it's within policy, but if it is if it's away from residents, it's outside the policy. But if the facility was within the SUE and close to the residents, it's somehow better in terms of the policy. I did find that a little bit of a contradiction. And maybe that's something that can be looked at again. There may be very good reasons as to why the policy is as it is. But for applications to work, they must adhere to the policies that we have. They must be evidence-based, and we need to be consistent in our approach to the determination of applications. So for me, it's a little bit of a fine balancing act, but I can understand the reasons why fellow members of the board have concluded to support the officer's recommendation, and I'm likely to do the same as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bannister. Okay. Michael, I just asked you a quick question. When you seconded the motion, or what Mr. Harrison has put forward, did you include the enforcement as well? Was it including?
Yes, Mr. Harrison made clear he was doing A and B, and I second that.
Yeah, okay. Right, okay, it's been moved by Mr. Harrison and seconded by Mr. Charlesworth. They're moving and seconding the recommendation, which is to refuse planning permission and to issue enforcement notice. We'll move to the vote now, and would everyone vote for or against the recommendation?
So say 4 first.
Huh?
Gonna go 4 first.
Oh, yes, yes. Are you for the recommendation?
You, Mr. Coxon?
Yeah.
It's unanimous.
So you're all sure and you don't want to change your minds? No? Okay. Thank you very much. That is then that the application is refused and enforcement will take place. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 8 then on the agenda. As I stated, there are no urgent items, and item 9, the next meeting of your board is scheduled to take place on the 22nd of June 2023 at 2 o'clock. With that, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much for attending and contributions. Thank you.